Okay, so as I said, we're starting with Megilat Esther for a few weeks now. I think it will be 3 weeks. I think that Megilat Esther is my favorite book of Tanakh. It's the favorite Tanakh. I absolutely love it. I some years ago made myself a hachlata to learn it every year before Purim with a different explanation. So we actually could do it for a year. We could do it in a huge amount of detail, but we're not. So I'm going to give to you the first level of understanding it. And as I have the privilege of teaching Megilat Esther to grade 11 at school, and I always tell them that what I hope this does for you is it makes you want to go and learn Megilat Esther. Like it should give you that desire to see the depth of Megilat Esther and how much we can get from Megilat Esther. So the thing for me when I started learning Megilas Esther was that, like always, Megilas Esther was, I know you have to hear it twice on Purim. Let's find the shul where the rabbi can read it the fastest, the clearest, whatever, and let's get through it. That was always. And from the time I became a rebbetzin, I made my husband mad. Practice reading Megillas Esther. You can't do more than 25 minutes. All the people will be gone. No one's interested. Like whatever. And since I started learning Megillas Esther and recognizing the words and the depth, I don't find those 25 minutes so long anymore. I actually started enjoying Megillas Esther being read. So as I said, we have to hear it being read twice on Purim, one in the night and once in the day. The lots of various halachas about how to hear it, where to hear it. Even if you have a husband or a friend or a rabbi who's happy to read it for you privately, that is not the ultimate way to hear Megillas Esther, but the best way to hear it is in a crowd, okay, together with other people. This is the concept of Pesuma Denisa spread, like seeing the miracle in public, everybody seeing it and doing it like that. There's another strange halacha that's written that says that if somebody read the Megillah backwards, they have not fulfilled the mitzvah of listening to Megillah Esther. And it forever fascinates us, like how drunk do you have to be to read the Megillah backwards, or to even want to read the Megillah backwards? Like, why does Shulchan Aruch have to tell us that if you read it backwards, you're not Yotze? And there are lots of different explanations for it, but the one I shared from the Baal Shem Tov, who explains, he says that when we read Megillah Esther, if we read it backwards, means if we read it as a story that happened many years ago, something that happened behind us, way back. If you read Megillas Esther like that, and you don't find the relevance in Megillas Esther, you don't find the relevance in Purim, you have not been Yotze on the mitzvah of Purim. So Megillas Esther is a story that happened historically, but there's something that applies to us now, here and now, and that's what we need to be looking for when we look in the Megillah. This year it's not so hard. We have all the stuff going on with Iran, same place, and we can see our own story of the Megillah happening. So Megillas Esther is written by Mordechai and Esther. It's called Megillas Esther and not Megillas Mordechai and Esther because she is the real hero of the whole story. She has a lot of Mesiras Nefesh in order for the Yidden to be saved, as we'll see, as we'll learn. And she was the one who made the suggestion that the Jews do Teshuvah, which is how come they were saved. Also, probably you know that Hashem's name is not written once in the whole Megillah, in the whole story. And this, on a simple level, the reason it's not Hashem's name is not there is because this is a history story for the Persians as well. And when they would write it into their history books, they would substitute Hashem's name with the name of their own gods. So Mordechai and Esther didn't want that. But on a deeper level, this is a lesson for us. So we know that in Devarim, Hashem says, "V'anechi haster aster es panai." I'm going to hide my face, and that's what Galus is all about. It exiles the time where Hashem's face is hidden, but we know Hashem is here. And our job is that we have to look for Hashem. And that's the Purim story. It's the story of, as the Baal Shem Tov explained to us, "Achein ata kel mistater," even though you, Hashem, might be a hidden God right now, we know you there. We know you there. And our job throughout the Purim story and now throughout now is to look for Hashem. So we know that there's two holidays that happen like after the destruction of Beis Hamikdash during Galus. The one is Hanukkah and the one is Purim. And Hanukkah is a story where Hashem is absolutely evident. Everything that you look at, like oil burns long, and people who aren't even trained as soldiers win over like well-trained soldiers. The whole story of Hanukkah is God is there. He's evident. There's no problem, no difficulty in finding Hashem in the Hanukkah story. The Purim story, however, is a story that we could explain away as a story that happened. There's a bad king and a bad man, and there's some good people, and the good people managed to do this and they do that, and then they win. They win over the bad man. And so we don't have to include God at all in the story of Purim if we don't want to. We actually have to make an effort to look for God and to find him and to realize that the Eibishter runs the world, even if it's not evident to us. It's interesting that the two toys that we play with on Hanukkah and on Purim are evident of the or show this concept. So in Hanukkah we play with a dreidel, and the dreidel spins from the top. Okay, that is Hashem is running this. The reason this toy is turning is from the top. Okay, it's from Hashem. And on Purim we play with a graga. The graga turns from the bottom. So it absolutely looks like the whole story of Purim is happening from the bottom here on this world, and it turns, right? And our job is to look and see that it's actually Hashem who's making the graga turn, right? Who's making the Purim story happen. We do know also that when it says Hamelach in the Megillah, then it is, and it doesn't say just Hamelach Achashverosh, just says the word Hamelach by itself. That's talking about Hashem. So just to put the Purim story in context very briefly, so I'm not giving a full-on history lesson now, just a brief surface history lesson, so that the Megillah makes sense, that there's certain things that we understand. So the three powers in the world at this time, the one is Babylon, the other one is Paras, which is Persia, and the other one is Madai, which is Media. Babel is the America, and it's the main power of the world, likes its position, thinks there's nobody greater, and that's Babel. And comes the leader of Babel, Nebuchadnezzar, and he destroys the Beis Hamikdash. And when he destroys the Beis Hamikdash, he takes all the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash, takes them back with him to Babel. After Nebuchadnezzar comes his son Evil Merodach, and after that comes his son Belshazzar. Belshazzar is the one who's very famous for having a party and using all the things, the kalim of the Beit HaMikdash, and he sees writing on a hand and writing on the wall. He calls for Daniel to interpret it, and basically Daniel tells him that his days are numbered and his power is quickly coming to an end. Where is the threat to him? So the threat is coming from the two leaders of Madai and of Paras. Those two leaders are looking to overtake or take over Bavel. That night, Belshazzar is very afraid, and he gives his army all instructions that they've got to watch out, that no one comes to assassinate him. And if anyone walks around outside his tent tonight, they must kill him immediately. And in his whatever, he says to his guard, even if the person were to say to you, it is the king himself, kill him. Don't feel bad for anyone. So that night, Belshazzar wants to go to the toilet, and there's no indoor plumbing, and he goes outside to go to the toilet. The guard says, "Halt! Who goes there?" And he says, "No, man, it's me, the king himself." And the guard says that's what Belshazzar was afraid of, and beheads him. Very quickly, the guards realize what they've just done, that they've killed Belshazzar, but they also know that Paras and Madai were planning to come in and fight with Belshazzar. So they decide to ingratiate themselves, put Belshazzar's head in a basket, and take it off to the king of Paras. Let's leave Bavel for a few minutes and go and see what's happening in Paras and Madai. So in Paras, there's a king. Their leader, is a man called Astigas. Astigas has an illegitimate son called Koresh. Koresh is quite famous in that he let the Jews start building the second Beis Hamikdash. Koresh is the original dog child. His mother put him out, hoping the dogs would eat him, and instead they nurtured him. And he was quickly found by a band of robbers who brought him up and also told him that he's really the royal. He comes from Astigas, so they help him to overthrow his father, and Koresh becomes the king. And he's the king. He's a good king. He allows the Jews to start building the second Beis Hamikdash. He stops them because he suddenly sees that all the Jews leaving and going back to Israel is very bad for his economy. So he stops them. Also, there's another big power called Madai. The king over there is a man called Dariavesh the first. And Dariavesh only has daughters. He doesn't have any sons. He's quite worried what's going to happen to him. And then he comes up with a plan that his daughter could marry Koresh. So that becomes the Treaty of Parasumadai, right, of Persia and Media. The daughter of Dariavesh married to Koresh. And they have a little boy who is called Ahasuerus. And don't think that Ahasuerus' parents woke up or stayed up the whole night before the bris trying to think of a name for him. They did not call him Ahasuerus. They called him Arhashast. Okay, that's by most opinions. Artashchas, Arhashast, whichever version you want to go with. Ahasuerus comes from the words chashrosh, a headache, a weak head, and that's what the Jews named him. They called him they said that whenever anybody sees him, they get a headache. There are a few other reasons as well. There is one explanation in the Gemara which says that Ahasuerus was a stable boy, but there are lots of explanations to explain what that really means, and that the people didn't consider him so royal because his father Koresh was an illegitimate son. In the meantime, while they're busy becoming more and more powerful, Bavel is falling. Paras and Madai go into Bavel and take it over. They bring back all their spoils and everything from Bavel to the place, the place of Paras and Madai. One of the prisoners of war who they bring back with them is Belshazzar's little girl, a 12-year-old called Vashti. And because she's so pretty and whatever, they, instead of throwing her into prison with the other prisoners of war, she grows up in the palace. She grows up together with Ahasuerus, and they fall in love, or at least Ahasuerus falls in love with her. And when she's all grown up, when they all both grown up, they get married. And actually, by most opinions, where the Megillah starts with the party of Ahasuerus, most opinions say that this was their wedding. Okay, so just to put the story of the Megillah in context. A few things to keep in mind, and probably the most important thing to keep in mind when we are learning the Megillah, is that Yirmiyahu the prophet had told the Jews at the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash that it would be 70 years before Hashem was going to save them and build the second Beis Hamikdash. They're now coming to the end of those 70 years, but there's no definite calculation. everybody has a different plan when the 70 years come to an end. So is it 70 years from when Yirmiyahu said it? Is it 70 years from when the first Jews were expelled from Israel? Is it 70 years from when the last Jews were expelled from Israel? So there's a whole lot of years. Some opinions it was 12 years, some opinions that it was 5 years difference, but somewhere around there, they're coming to the end of it. So that's the one thing to understand. And I think the bigger thing to like understand and throughout the Megillah, which fascinates me because it continues till today, the Goyim understand our relationship with Hashem better than we do. Not only they understand it better than we do, but they accept it more than we do. So the Goyim are so sure that if we Jews behave ourselves, Hashem will be nice to us, and we just carry on plodding, doing what we want, how we want, when we want. So here we have Achashverosh, who knows that he does not want the Jews to become a world power again. He does not want Hashem to save the Jews. And what's his method of trying to stop that from happening? If I get the Jews to sin, Hashem will be cross with them and he won't save them. So that's like a shortened version of the whole Purim story, actually. It's Achashverosh's understanding that the Jews need to have a connection with Hashem in order to be saved. So let's look at the Megillah inside. If you are following with the Megilat Esther, it begins Vayhi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He was Achashverosh. Hamelech Mehodu v'ad Kush. He ruled from Hodu to Kush. Sheva ve'esrim umeya Medina. 127 states. So we know the rule that whenever we see the word Vayehi, and specifically when we see it says Vayehi b'mei, that something bad is about to happen. So here we know what's bad. Okay, there's going to be a Haman. That's the bad that's about to happen. So it's interesting that the word Vayehi always says something bad is going to happen. When we see the word Vahaya, then we know something good is about to happen. And the Mefarshim explained to us why. Why does Vayehi represent that something bad and Vahaya something good? They're almost identical words. The Vayehi, when it got the letters of Hashem in, are two little yuds. And Vahaya, what's got the letters of Hashem in, it's with a hey. And what is the difference of the yud and the hey? So a yud is little, it's very small, and the hey is big, and it stands on 2 feet solidly. So Vayehi and the two little yuds is hinting to us, it's alluding to us that Hashem is little in our eyes at that time. What is pain? What is difficulty? What makes challenges is when we don't see Hashem or we don't like what Hashem is doing. Hashem is little yud. He's not there in his full glory for us at this moment, and therefore something bad, right? Vahaya, when we see Hashem clearly, we happy, right? This is something good. This is something we like. So it's Vayehi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. Something bad is about to happen. He's Achashverosh who rules from Hodu, that is India, at Kush, which is Ethiopia or Africa, depending which opinion you go with, 127 states. The Gemara tells that Rabbi Akiva was teaching one day and he saw that his students were falling asleep. And so he stopped his lesson. This always gives me comfort because if Rabbi Akiva's students couldn't stay awake, then if mine want to go to sleep, I understand. So Rabbi Akiva stopped his talk and he said to them, in the merit that Sarah Imenu lived 127 years of her life perfectly, in that merit, her descendant Esther, 1,000 years later, merited to be the queen over 127 countries, and therefore she was able to save the Jewish nation. And it says that the Gemara explains that the students perked up, everybody sat up, and listened to the rest as he continued to teach. It leaves us with a question. What does the one thing have to do with the other? Just by the fact that the numbers are the same, 127 and 127. What does it really? What was he really saying to them? And so our commentaries explain to us that what he was saying is that we all think we live our own private lives, we live in our own little bubble. And if I want to listen to this show and concentrate, great. If I rather want to go to sleep, that's also fine. Not going to bother anybody. I'm either going to learn more or I'm not. Who's it going to bother if I don't do this? What's going to happen if I do that? We think we live private lives. And what Rabbi Akiva was saying to his students is that we live a life where we are responsible not just for ourselves but for the people around us, and we, no matter who we are, and not only are we responsible for the people around us and our own direct families, but for our descendants in 1,000 years' time, we are also responsible. And therefore, everything that we do, we have to think. Just as Sarah Imenu thought about every single one of her days, how it would affect the future, and it did affect the future. So each of us, and that's probably first lesson that we get from the Megillah, relevant lesson, we are not responsible only for ourselves, we are responsible for everyone, for generations and generations to come. And so it says, by Yomim Hahim, in those days, Kashevas HaMelech Achashverosh, then King Achashverosh sat al Kisei Malchusai on his throne, Asher B'Shushan Habira, which was in Shushan, the capital. So the word Kashevet, he was sitting, means he was now sitting securely. He thought the danger zone was over, and he was now going to be the king. He could be the king, he could do whatever he wanted. He sat, as the pasuk says, al kisei malchusai, on his throne. So one of the things that were brought back from Babylon, from Bavel, when he was brought back to, when he brought the spoils of war, was Shlomo HaMelech's throne. So I'm sure you've all seen a picture of Shlomo HaMelech's throne with the animals going down the side. And after Shlomo HaMelech, his throne never allowed anybody to walk up those steps again. It had some powers in it, and any king or person who tried to go up those steps and sit on the throne got attacked by those animals on the side. No one could understand it. So all the other kings avoided it. King Achashverosh was quite bold, and he came up with a plan that he hid away Shlomo HaMelech's throne, and he built his own one. He had people make it that it looked identical to Shlomo HaMelech. So everybody thought he was so great because he had it looked like it was Shlomo HaMelech's throne that no one else could sit on, but he could sit on it. It didn't trick Mordechai and Esther, as it says over here. It was where he sat al kisei malchusai, on his throne, not on Shlomo HaMelech's throne. He also moved the capital, and the capital had been Bavel in Babylon, and he moved it to Shushan to be the new capital. And explains Bishnas Shalosh Lamalchai, in the third year of his kingship, Asa Mishte, he made a feast L'chol Sarah, for all his officers, V'avadav Chel Parus U'Madai Apartumim V'Sarei Hamadinos Lefanov. So he's made this party for all the important people of Parus U'Madai. He understood clearly that if you want to be an unpopular ruler, you need your army and your ministers and everyone to stand by you. So the first thing he does is he starts to schlup them up, and he makes this big party for them. A 7-day party, as we'll see. He's going to show them the wealth of his kingdom, and how, like, the beautiful things of his greatness, Yomim Rabim, for a lot of days, Shmeinim U'Ma'as Yom, 180 days. So this was you're asking something? So he made this. So he's made this party, 180 days. Okay, so it's a big long party, and at this party, he's showing off his wealth. Whenever we see the words about talking about wealth, and it uses the word tiferes, it hints to the fact that he was using all the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash, and he dressed himself in the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, as we'll see also with the next party that he makes. The Medrash explains the opulence that was happening at this party, said that there was no food cooked twice. In other words, there was a different menu every single day, and every single day he took out 6 treasures from the Beis Hamikdash to show off to show the people. So this is what's happening. 180 days. At the end of the 180 days, he makes another party. Uvim la'is hayamim ha'ele. When these days were finished, asa hamelach l'chol ha'am. The king made for all the nation hanimtzaim b'Shushan habira, who were found there in Shushan, the capital, l'migadol ad katan, from old ones to young ones, mishteh, a feast, Shivas Yamim, of 7 days, B'chatzar Ginas Bisan Hamelach, in the garden of the palace. And then it also explains the opulence there. Chur karpasut cheles achuz b'chavle vutz argaman al galile kesef v'amudei sheish mitay zahav v'chesef al ritzpas bahat v'sheish v'das v'seichares. So absolute, if you're following in English, you can read all the different kinds of couches and silverware and marble, everything beautiful, wall hangings. This is the party for the people of Shushan, and why he Dafka chose to make a party for the people of Shushan. So I think maybe having lived in Cape Town for a while, I can relate to what the commentaries say over here. Cape Townians don't like tourists. Okay, in fact, I had a T number plate for I don't know how long, and during December or so, I didn't really want to drive my car. Okay, people shouldn't see this Transvaal number plate, because the Cape Townians don't like tourists coming, filling up their streets, making traffic between Sea Point and Constantia, and then trying to go around past Camps Bay in the traffic, and everything goes up in price, and the restaurants are full, and the supermarkets are full, and the tourist places are full, and the Cape Townians moan big time about it. But somewhere they know, and the government, the municipalities, everybody know that they have to have tourists in order to exist. So what could they do to make the Cape Townians appreciate their tourists is if they do something nice for the Cape Townians. So if they were to make special parking places for Cape Townians only, or give reduction to different places, or whatever it is, we've got to think of ways to make the people of the city like the tourists. So now all of a sudden, Achashverosh has taken this quiet little city called Shushan, and he's turned it into a capital, and he's busy inviting people all over for these big parties. And the people of Shushan don't really appreciate that. And so he decides, cleverly, to make a 7-day party for the people of Shushan. Just to point out to you that it's quite recent that Ezra made Daniel made the takanas. He said that Jews were not allowed to eat pas akum, bread that was cooked by a non-Jew, and they weren't allowed to drink yain nesach, wine that was touched by a non-Jew. And the reason that he made that, why did he suddenly make these rules, was so that there shouldn't be socializing between the Jews and the non-Jews. He wanted to prevent intermarriage and such things. So this is quite new rules, but this would prevent the Jews from going to the party, and they weren't ready to do that. There's lots of discussion about how Achashverosh made this party and how he made it into one of the most luxurious parties you could imagine. He thought about everything. He had chefs from all over so that you could choose which kind of food you want. He had beautiful wall hangings. It explains in the Medrash how he got flowers planted that they would be in the right place when the wind blows, so that you would get the right smell at the right time from the right thing. And the only thing he did not provide at this party was music. He had 2 reasons for not providing music. The one reason, he said, there is no way that you can make everybody happy with the same music. What some people love in music, other people hate. So there's no way you can play music. They didn't have silent discos in those days. So there's no way that you can play music that everybody will like. And the second thing, which I think is even more powerful, he knew that music could possibly make the Jews do teshuvah. Music has the ability to move us. Music makes us connect, disconnect, changes our mood, can make us happy, it can make us sad, depending on what music we are listening to. And so Achashverosh said, there is no way I'm going to risk it, that the Jews are going to hear music and suddenly do teshuvah. And no. Okay, so he didn't play any music at all. Just also to point out how it explains the food over there. So I'm in Pasuk Zion, for anyone who's following. Vashkos b'chlei zahav, and they would drink from golden glasses. These are all the dishes from the Beis Hamikdash. The chelim kelim shonim, all different kinds of dishes. I find this very amusing. Apparently, the more dish services of plates that you use, it shows how rich you are. I always thought that, like, if I put out 3 different kinds of dishes, it means that my first one's broke and I only have 2 or 3 left, and the second one's broke and I only have 4 or 5 left, right? So I didn't think that it shows luxury. But the Gemara actually says that the more sets of dishes you have, the more it shows your status. And then it says, V'yayin malchus rav, he put out a lot of wine, kiyara melech, like by the hand of the king, v'hashsiya kedas ein eines, and the drinking, by law, no one could be forced. Kicheni sara melech, this is what the king said, I'll call Rav Beisai, to all the people in charge in his house, la'asais kirtsoin ish va'ish, to do as each man wanted. So the first thing that we told, if you take notice, it uses the word Hamelach a lot of times, not Hamelach Achashverosh. So this party represents, so to speak, with all the different sets of dishes and all the different kinds of cups and all the different kinds of foods and all the different kinds of drinks for us to do. Says the Maharal, that this represents the party, so to speak, that Hashem gives us when we come into the world. Hashem says, here is everything you need in order to exist in this world. These are the dishes and these are the cups and these are the foods. And we choose how we set our table. We choose which cups and cutlery and which food and which drink. We choose how to take everything that we need for living, how we're going to use it in this world with our set. Coming back to it at a very surface level, Achashverosh did not want anybody to be forced to drink for 2 reasons. The first thing, it says that very, very often when people drink too much, they fight. And Achashverosh did not want it to be a brawl in a pub, that his party should turn into that. And he also didn't want the Jews to have any excuse for sinning. That they would say afterwards, well, we did that, we were drunk, we weren't completely in control. And the last words, which I'll finish with over here, so it says he wanted, the instruction that he gave to the people of his household was to do kirtzoin ish va'ish, by the will of each person. And the Medrash tells us that Hashem said to Achashverosh, how do you think you can make everybody happy? So Achashverosh said, yeah, that's my plan. I'm going to make everybody happy. Everyone is going to get what they want. Everybody's going to have what they need. And everyone is going to like me and be happy with me. And Hashem responds to him and says, even I can't make everybody happy at the same time. And Hashem gives Achashverosh 2 examples. He says, if there are 2 men who want to marry the same woman, only one of them is going to be happy in the end. And if there are 2 boats which are going in opposite direction and they're both praying for wind, only one of them is going to get wind in the direction that it wants. So Achashverosh says, no, I can make everyone happy. And Hashem says, watch and see. Tomorrow you're going to have 2 officers who are going to get up. And you're going to have a Mordechai and you're going to have a Haman. And you are not going to be able to make all of them happy. And I think that's where we are going up to today.
Thanks so much, Ricky.
Thank you,
Pleasure. I'm trying to switch
Have a good Shabbos and a good evening tonight. Happy cooking.
Bye,
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
Oi.
Also trying to switch it off.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Bye, Richie. Thank